now is working.
I'm trying. It's hard. That walls. She got like double wall with the bars on top
You
and
gotta put in work. You didn't want no easy chick, did you? Let a wall down to any there, but everybody, did you?
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book. You already know what time it is. Are you mad? Are you mad? Are you lean? Let's get into the video. We're going to talk to you guys about Married at First Sight. Yeah. And one thing I just want to pick up on a lot of this. So let's pick up on the psychology, just picking up some of the body language that was happening in between that conversation. And one of the things that was mentioned was, how do we break these walls? And I wanted to kind of say, look, you know, when you're dealing with somebody who's got a lot of emotional walls on, it does take patience and it takes a lot of time. But the one thing I will say as well is that the problem with walls is that good people tend to have to work harder to break walls down than bad people. And the reason why I say that is because when you have people who are in toxic relationships, they tend to share what's behind the wall with a toxic person than they do with somebody who actually genuinely cares about them. And there's a reason why the psychology happens. One, because oftentimes in that toxic relationship, the person's yearning for what they call love, and they're yearning for an affection and an attention. And although the relationship is toxic, there's an up and down feeling that comes with that relationship. Sometimes we're good, sometimes we're bad. And then when you have that roller coaster effect, what happens is you tend to try and equalize it by going, okay, do you know what, when we're good, I'll try and share a bit about myself, etc., so that we can try and keep this good. Because you and yourself got a victim and a superhero complex within yourself, which comes like a paradox. So you're behaving like Clark Kent, but also behaving like Lois Lane. Lois Lane is less of a victim, but you're behaving like one of the victims that Superman saves. And what happens is within you, you internalize that and say, okay, cool, I'm trying to save that person, because you're trying to, you know, oftentimes when we stay in toxic relationships, because we see something ourselves in that person, or I see the good in that person, and because you want them to see the good in you, because that's how you feel, you try to overcompensate by trying to be overly nice, overtly open to that other person. Because you see some trait in them that you want the person to see in you, right? And so that person looking at you also then, that person who's in a toxic relationship with you themselves hasn't necessarily even asked for the information of why you've got walls up. In fact, they don't even see you've got walls up because they don't care.
I can tell, like, she's letting her walls down. So you're doing, whatever you're doing now is working.
And the more the person doesn't care, the less power that you have, which means you're trying to grab up, which normally happens, then you tend to try and share so that the person would care, which is the paradox. The person doesn't care, but you want them to care. And it's because potentially we've seen that kind of behavior from potentially your parenthood. You've seen that from when you were young. You've seen that from when your environment you stayed in. And so you think, you almost normalize the type of behavior. Yet, when you get something like John and Greg is overtly nice, yeah? And what happens is it's almost like when you've been traumatized and then put into a very, let's say you've been caged up in jail time, it's hard for people to come out and be in a lovely environment around people because you're so used to having to watch your back. Now when almost as if it feels like you're being lured into a deeper trap if I allow the good people to be around me, because if they then turn around, these people are probably playing up even more than other people. You see, so it's almost as if like you're scared that you'll be trapped even more and lied to even more, that will further damage you. So that trauma would be even worse. At least somebody shows their hand from the beginning. I know you're a prick from the beginning, it's fine. Let's work with that. Because I can work with what I see. But what I don't see is the prick inside of you at the moment. I don't see that nasty guy inside of you. I don't see that nasty girl inside of you. I don't see that toxicity from you. So, you know what? I don't know when it's coming, but I know it's coming. And that's what happens with trauma. When you get traumatized, what happens is you're expecting, when's the next time it's coming? Because you've been traumatized. Yeah? And so when it comes to relationships like this with John and Greg, the walls are up for Greg because he genuinely is presenting this nice guy. And it's almost as if, when is he going to present the prick? When he presents the prick, I bet you 100%, Dionna would begin to share what's behind the walls. Because we naturally feel like sometimes when you've been traumatized by past relationships that I can't share with a person who's too goodly. Because also what it does is, if somebody's too good and you're not too, and you feel like you're not worthy, it exposes your non-worthiness. That's how you feel. It exposes your imperfections when that person's more perfect than you. And so it's almost like having white walls and having dirty hands. You feel suddenly unclean in a room where it's so super clean because you'd feel like you're not clean. So you understand the psychological things that are happening between Jonah and Greg. That's the difficulty Greg is going to face. And even knowing the psychological stuff behind it still doesn't stop it from happening, because at the end of the day, the person who is the one that's putting the walls up needs to have this information to be able to break the walls that they've got quicker than what they're doing. That's not to say Jonah's not breaking the walls. I just believe that she's taking her time, because again, it's like he's too sweet almost. So that question in terms of how to break these walls, it's simply he has to keep the consistency going, and Jonah has to want to be in that relationship as well.
I feel like we're getting closer, and ultimately this is what we've been working on this entire time. But I'm definitely worried and nervous that I'm going too slow for Greg, and that he might say no on decision day. But this is something I'm working on, and that I really want to work.
We're dealing with God as well. God is such, when we talk about Jesus Christ, his perfection shows us our imperfection. And one thing that we struggle to do is come to God with our imperfections, because we're scared. We know that God is holy, he's mighty, he's powerful, he's perfect, and yet we see our imperfections before ourselves and say, how can I come, guilty as I am, as dirty as I am, as sinful as I am, how can I come and present myself to God in my dirty, dirty rags? You know what I'm saying? It's almost like a king inviting you to his palace, and you've got no good clothes to go to the king's house. You won't want to go because you've got dirty rags on. That's how it feels like, but that's not the reality of what Christ has done. You see, if you've given your life to Christ, Christ has actually turned. It says it says our righteousness was filthy rags before him, because it was our righteousness. It was our good deeds, right? But with Christ's righteousness, the Bible says in 2 Corinthians 5 verse 21, where it talks about he gives us his righteousness now. So now Jesus Christ's perfection is now what God sees in me. When God sees me, he doesn't see the dirty, filthy sins that I've been doing, or that I have been doing, that I have done, that I will potentially do, and that I'm currently doing. He's not seeing it. What he sees is what Christ has done already on the cross. And that's scary for a lot of people, because they don't like that, because it's like, how can God see only the perfection in me when I know I'm imperfect? Yeah, that's the beauty of God. That's the beauty of God. That's the beauty of the God that I serve, that is a living God that understands. He said he sent Christ. Christ came and lived the life that we lived, in a sense of he understood even what we're going through. So we have a high priest, a person who can atone for us, who understands our imperfections, who understands how tough it is, the temptation down there. Do you get what I'm saying? So just know that. I know that there are certain relationships that you're in where you find it tough. Me, myself, I find it tough to talk about deep stuff, because I feel like people don't really listen. But that's what I've experienced. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the truth. There are people out there that do listen. Do you know what I'm saying? And so when you come to God, it's the exact same way. People are so used to a father maybe always berating them, or being hard on them, or when they fail, saying, do better. When God's looking at you like, listen, son, daughter, come, let's chat, man. I know that you didn't make it that far, but I'm not concerned with that. What I'm concerned with is that me and you relationship, we're working it. You know what I'm saying? And that's a scary thing. That's a scary thing to have having a partner who has the same mind of Christ, who can say, Joe, I overlook your flaws. This is what Jonah's getting from Greg. I'm not saying he is God. I'm saying that he may be exhibiting certain godly traits in the sense of kindness, endurance, long-suffering. When somebody shows you that, it can be scary, because it's like, I am not good enough for that. But you don't need to be good enough for that when it comes to God anyway. Cool. Something that was mentioned, the friend mentioned that you don't want an easy chick, did you? Sorry? No.
Alright, you didn't want no easy chick, did you? Let her wall down to any neighbor, everybody, did you?
No. You're not going to be an advocator nor an enabler for DEONNA'S tough behavior. We need to come out of that. And that's the thing. I think that's the difference between like men and women, maybe potentially. But if a girl came to me and said to me like, your boy is tough, I'll be like, listen, like, yo, he is tough, but you know what? Here's the things that can help make this. He shouldn't be tough. You understand? Like, I'm not here enabling the behavior. Oh, like you didn't want it easy. Yes, we did want it easy. We don't want it tough. Listen, men get to a certain age and we do not want it tough. We're not 18 no more. I don't want the fiery Latina girl. I don't want the fiery black chick. I don't want the fiery white girl. I don't want none of that fire that you lot are bringing. I don't want none of that heat that you lot are bringing. I want a simple life. And any man who's matured enough and gets to a certain stage will understand what I'm saying. It's the immature man, then the Peter Pans that love the girl with a bit of fire that's always clapping back, always cussing, always lacking decorum, always wants to be in an argument, always wants to go crazy, like some of you think is sexy. It's not sexy. It's sexy in a film because they portray it that way, but it's not sexy when you're in a relationship and you're trying to make it a marriage for a long time. So men do want it simple. So let's cancel that statement by Jonah's friend. Sorry, I had to cancel it. And you know what? It doesn't help also Deonna as well in terms of breaking down those walls, because if you've enabled her behavior by saying, you know, men don't even want it easy anyway, you've more likely said the same kind of particular words in a different way to Deonna as well, enabling those thick walls. 10 years, cuz. 10 years. That lets me know they're friends. And then, you know what I mean? How can it be 10 years of this wall that you built up for that time? Like, what are your friends doing to help enable that this wall's coming down? Do you know what I mean? Breaking those walls. Do you feel what I'm saying? Let's not enable those walls. Do you get what I'm saying? She mentioned also as well, you've got to put the work in to break the walls. And I will say that obviously, you know what, you're absolutely right. There is obviously work that needs to be done. What I would say is that we don't want to have walls to break. We don't have to put work in to break down emotional walls that are always being constantly built. And this is why I would say that it goes back to even before a relationship between Donna and Greg. Another man has got there before Greg has, and has created these walls being put up, what we call strongholds. And the Bible says that our words of warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty for the pulling down of strongholds. It's talking about Jesus Christ as the way to pull down these strongholds. It's to retrain your mind with a different word. And it's the same principle, the same of, there's certain strongholds emotionally that we have that don't allow us to accept certain people, certain actions, that don't allow us to be free. And the way to break those strongholds is to have a weapon that's able to overcome those strongholds. And for us, when it comes to relationships, that stronghold is knowledge, it is understanding, and it's also wisdom, which comes from what? Information. When you begin to invite information into you that is retraining the mind, which can be an experience of dealing with a boyfriend who was much better, or dealing with a person who able to impute you with psychological impact of different things that enable you to actually see yourself in a different light, or the third one, which is even spiritually having the insight of what God sees you like, you're able to overcome what we call strongholds. You're able to uproot the trees that have begun to form hedges around you that stop people from getting to know you, you know what I'm saying, and stop people getting too close to you. So that is what Deonna's facing at the moment, and she's doing well. Again, I want to reiterate, she's doing well, but there are people who are watching this who will understand what I'm saying, where they're in a place where they cannot let the walls down because they don't trust themselves, the compass that's within themselves, to choose the right guy or the right girl, or they've experienced several people that have come along and it's a defense mechanism. So when they do get the right person, what's happened is they're having to undo and cut down the hedges. Well, guess what? If you had 10 years of hedges, you've got a lot of work to do to cut down those hedges. So there is going to be hard work. But what I want to say is that for those of us who are in, going to get into relationships, especially men who are watching this, let's start being responsible with action, because it creates strongholds, it creates, it creates hedges, it creates a barrier around women emotionally who struggle to recover from this and actually act out in a certain way. And you're asking why she was acting crazy, because a man like yourself, a gender of ours, decided it'd be fun. He decided that for the fact that he's entitled and he feels like he can, decides to hurt somebody emotionally. And that's the truth of what it is. And I think that's an important part to say. Obviously, that's why God also tells us to be responsible in our action, and the fact that marriage, because marriage is also linked with having sex, consummating that marriage. That's why sex is so important, not having it before marriage, because oftentimes what happens is people abuse it and use it incorrectly without commitment, and then they walk away. And I always say this, somebody who's a virgin, will not want somebody just that will not just want to have a fling. The reason why is because the innocence that is there. Look, the reason why people want to have flings, one night stands, and find it fun, and even just having casual sexual partners, and I'm not even saying it in the fact that they're loose or they are a hoe or anything like that, nothing of the sort, but just really enjoy sex outside of marriage. I'll say this, because you've been robbed. When originally you had sex, you didn't have it in a committed fashion. Oftentimes you feel robbed, and what do? In order to get your power back, you rob back by doing what? By saying, I just want to have sex. I want to be free. I want to do what I want to do. I want to get mines. And that creates that impression because you've been robbed originally. And so now you don't give two pence about the world, as they say. It's mad.
He's being adventurous and trying something new. I'm proud of him. Something that he definitely would not do normally. Good job.
It was interesting as well. Deonna again just kind of shows me again, I think, The fact that, you know what, with her and Greg, where they're going to really find most joy in terms of him breaking down DEONNA'S walls down. And I think her love language is actually quality time, but activities. I've noticed that with activity, she's very, very competitive, number one. And two, she finds it very interesting. She finds it, she opens up a bit more and is a bit more loving towards Greg when they're doing it. Number one, they had an ice hockey game in the house earlier on. That was competitive. They were talking about, they had the axe throwing as well. They had also as well, sorry, what was it? The eating of the insects and stuff like that. You see that she loves this adventurous type of thing. She's always on the go, and that's for her. Again, I believe the love language might be for her is quality time activities, because quality time is broken down into two: quality time activities and quality time conversations. I think Greg is conversations. Now, this is the problem I had with my particular partner back in the day, which was they were quality time but activities. Now, no matter if you're both under the bracket of quality time, if you don't understand that the person has quality time activities and your quality time conversations, you're going to bump heads still, because you're still speaking two different languages in a sense of underneath that bracket. You want quality time, but you want it in different ways. And when you begin to understand that, then you begin to understand how they receive love. And at that point, then you can begin to make changes within the relationship. And that's the thing that's for me is that I want people. For me, I'm a quality time conversation, and the one thing that gets me is that when people start to ask me about what I do, like they actually show a genuine interest in me. I not necessarily even what I do, but just a genuine interest in me. Like I begin to, you know, become aware, become open, and become a bit more free. So understanding that with Donna and Greg is very, very important if they want to be able to grow in their relationship. And even following on from that as well, when they were doing the insect part as well, with eating as well, I saw that, you see that DEONNA congratulated Greg in that session. She said, "Oh, well done," and she said, "Well done." And I think she did this with the zip wire as well when they did it as well. When he decided to do it, oh, she said, "Well done." And the reason again is the words of affirmation from her, because these words of affirmation that come to him come through when she recognizes that he's done something out of his comfort zone. That's great, but it's also a problem. Reason being is that you can only identify words of affirmation when he's doing something outside of his own comfort zone, rather than actually what he is. And so sometimes it could be something very simple, like okay, he let's say like he does what he normally does, yeah. He's very thoughtful, and then you don't thank him because it's not outside of his comfort zone, and it's not in your domain, right? Because the times I've seen her say thank you and all that stuff, yeah, has often been in the times when when they're doing activities, and he's coming out of his comfort zone. You saw how she struggled, you know, to even accept the loving behavior from him when she was sick, because that wasn't in her domain. That's not quality time activities. You understand? When it's quality time activities, she's able to then free able to say, "Oh, thank you very much. You know, oh, thank you for going out of your way. Like, well done."
Definitely would not do it normally. Good job.
Because you're doing something that she's doing. And that's how we are as human beings. I'm not blaming DEONNA again. I'm saying this is how we are as human beings. We sometimes fail to acknowledge people in certain ways, or fail to show love in other areas because we don't understand it. And that's why it's important to feed yourself information to override that. And I remember, like I said, I remember back in the day when I was dating somebody, I used to wear caps like this. But my cap at the time was a very, very, very out there cap. And I remember the person and their friends, one day I came in and they had like jokingly threw my stuff and my hat outside the window, and were laughing and saying like, "No, we have to get rid of that." And I was so pissed off, like so angry. It was unbelievable, right? And the reason why I was so angry is because like this person really said, you know, I was so angry because of the way that I received what you had done. You may have been joking, but for me, it was like, hold on a minute, you're actually coming at myself. You may not like that fashion sense, but it's coming at myself. And see, sometimes when we think we're doing something, and we don't do it in the right fashion, the right vein, the right love, and we lack understanding, because that's the point I'm trying to make about understanding, we may do it as a joke, but it's infuriating. Just like when, you know, when he did it last episode.
You're gonna continue mansplaining me? You're gonna continue to mansplain as I'm trying?
Making a first step.
You're good. I'm done.
First.
Nope, I'm done.
Deonna. He said, but and the time she was trying to do quality conversations, right? She was trying to come on his plane because she finds it very hard to talk, and then suddenly he was doing the jokes, and that made her tighten up. Now he might have thought he was joking, but at the time she was trying to be real. And see, so sometimes we lack understanding in certain areas. And this is where God says about, his love and his mercy and his grace. He talks about the fact that, mercy is getting what you do, is not being, punished for the crimes that you've committed, or not punished for what you deserved in a sense. And then grace is what getting blessing for things that you don't deserve, because you didn't do anything to deserve the blessing. And then we're talking about love, a love which covers a multitude of sins. It's like, so we don't often, we don't issue that in our relationships. And so, yeah, I mean, it was interesting to just see John and Greg and kind of see that. So, I mean, they've got a lot of talking to do as well. So, again, these are the things I'm talking about that this show could actually start to tap into. The problems that you're talking about, yeah, we don't need to force it. People already got problems. Every relationship's got problems. Nothing's perfect. If we start looking at how we can actually really get to depths of people to make better relationships, trust me, it'll be
The adrenaline of like throwing an axe is getting me hype right now. I've never done it before, and it's dangerous too, so I'm excited.
Obviously, I just want to point this last thing out as well. I think when I was saying about Donna and being quality activities as well, I saw that adventurous side of her, and I thought to myself, that adventurous side also can be taken against you as a weakness, in the sense of someone can also say, that's probably one reason maybe why as well Donna might have been in situationships, because is that adventure side of you, that getting your heart rate up, also that can be tapped into in relationships, because sometimes we're in relationships where you argue one day and you make up sex the next day, right? That kind of relationship, just taking God out of the situation in a sense. And it's like, that gets your heart rate up. It's like, yeah, that's the kind of relationship I want to be, when I'm energized and boom, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel it in my bones and that. Sometimes we want that relationship, and that's not what you need. But because that's your love language, being adventurous, being activity-wise, you think that you're receiving love that way, when really actually you're being abused that way. And I want to let you know this as well. Every love language you have is also a weakness, because it's also the area where whatever you're starved in, you can be tempted in. And it's also the area where you can be taken advantage of and abused, because you're wanting that particular thing. If you're hunting for a certain food all the time and that's all you want, right? Like, all I want is, like, for instance, not even the food. Let's say like you're looking for a particular product, right? Like, you're looking for a particular phone, and you now know that, Apple have run out of the phone. All major shops have run out of the phone. You're now looking at the black market. You're now going deep into a place to find this phone because you're really so obsessed with getting this phone. And now suddenly you're in a place paying £5,000 for a phone that was only worth £500 because you really wanted that thing so much. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to love languages. When you're starved, you can end up paying the price of now chasing something that you shouldn't chase because of your love language. If you don't receive what you need to receive. Which is why, even though you receive love from a human being in that particular way, the ultimate penultimate is that you need to have God as your one and only. Because in the moment where you're weak in that love area, it is God that is saying to you, son, at that area, don't fall. Now, am I saying that Christians don't fall? Of course they bloody fall. Christians cheat, they lie, they steal, they're crooks sometimes. They can be some of the worst people when they act in a certain way, but they are Christians in the sense of because of what Christ has done. Do you get me? We can act upon our flesh, but what I'm saying is that when God is there, the opportunity to choose something different is there also. So yeah, I want to just leave it on that point of John and Greg. Just kind of notice that them two, I saw that, it's nice, they're in a good position, and I believe that they are probably the strongest couple we've got on the show. Hence why I don't think they push any particular storyline towards them, because there is none. And the Bible said, Jesus Christ said, listen, Satan have nothing in me. The prince of this world has nothing in me. And it's the exact same thing I'm looking at their relationships. Almost as if the studio people, the people who are producers and that, they got nothing in those two. So they can't force certain narratives. I feel like they've forced certain storylines and forced certain things into certain characters and their relationships. But that's another story. So guys, yeah, it's a little black book. You already know what time it is. You ain't got the minerals, baby. Are you mad, Aline? I didn't even do that at the beginning. You ain't got the